Hi everyone. I thought it might be useful to have a video that hopefully you have time to look at before we have our one-to-ones next week, this week. And what I did with the other day was I just sat down and thought about the kind of questions parents typically pose at the end of the year. And I thought I'd do some explaining now, so you'd have some context and some information before we have our meetings about a number of things about closure, summer, and then moving ahead. Certainly feel free to ask questions, as I'll remind you, when we have our meeting, but I thought addressing some of these ahead of time might just save the amount of time we have during this period. And thanks in advance for those who have signed up already. So what I'd like to do is to just go through a bunch of topics that I think are valuable, that have talking points for you to consider. And as I tell everybody, I always have something to say. So I think these are important for parents to have as information before you close kindergarten, before you start the summer, and in light of next year. And certainly these are important things in a typical year, when we're in building, in session, and in person. And I think that they have similar importance with some spins of, change because of the vast unknown that comes with next year. So in thinking about things, I will send out a list of standards, I think probably this weekend, that are the kindergarten standards around ELA, English Language Arts, and math, which are the critical elements. I'm just not going to go into the science, social studies, and the others, because I think these hold the most weight. I have documents that are both the technical, professional, adult language, and I also have ones that are student-driven. I can count to 100. And so I'll provide you with both of those, so you have them as guideposts. Parents often ask both the curriculum night in September, remember September, and then now, what should my student know? Coupled on top of that, the fact that we were in session in building for 6 months, and then out of session, out of building for 3 months. But standards still hold. Review them. I'm certainly happy to answer questions later on, but I'd say the important ones to be aware of are, and I feel content and secure with moving our students forward into first grade, is students need to know all the letters of the alphabet and all of the major letter sounds. And for the most part, those are short vowels and typically the hard sound. So k and g for the C and G, and then a, e, I, for the vowels. We do assessments, which we were just about to. I had the stack of papers on the table when I went in the other day from March of providing an updated evaluation before the March report card would have gone out. I usually test and assess for 32 sounds, hard and soft, and then long and short vowels. We did some work with the long vowels. They would have been more emphasized in the weeks we're missing, and so I tried to infuse those in the rhyme games as we came upon those at different times. We don't typically go into spelling rules like we'll bring it up. What we didn't get to is silent E and how it influences the other one, and two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, those kind of things. Those are more heavily emphasized into first grade. So letter identification, letter sounds, and then the 26 kindergarten reading words, which I will send out along with the expected first grade words. That's for kind of mechanical information around the literacy piece. The other part is the reading levels. In a typical year, the hoped for goal, there's no entrance standard to K, there's exit expectations. Are they standards? Research indicates that a student leaving kindergarten reading at grade level C is on track for continued success in future reading level skill acquisition and development. If you go on to, I was able to assess almost everyone who was in session the last 3 days my assessment day was going to be Thursday, the 11th, 12th of March, when Ms. Carl's coming in. I was going to pull students to assess again before the report card. But I felt school was coming to a close, so I was trying to spin through, at least get a screening and provide that information to you when March began. The reading levels to start out in K are usually AA, A, B, and C. If you check back with the notes, I have my records, and hopefully we'll have those up by Monday to check with you. But if you go to RazKids, which is the leveled book reading site that PTSA generously pays for the community, teachers and families, you can do a sampling in there and take a look at the reading levels. What I suggest is for confidence and competence, for most students who are in the ABC category, if some of the advanced readers are in a different place, and we've chatted previously, is pull a book, the book list up for level A, for example, and then there's nonfiction and fiction set. Look at 3 or 4 titles and just say, come on over, I'd like to listen to you read one of these books. Mr. Gallagher said we should do this. Use my name as much as you want. And then, there's a book about alligators, and there's a book about bunnies that go to school. Do a fiction and a nonfiction. And then whichever one they want, motivation, call it up, and then ask them to read on the screen with you. The 3 types of reading levels that we work with in school. There's frustration, instruction, and independent. Frustration level, instruction level, independent level. Frustration level sounds like this when a student is reading. I went to the story. The student does not have the fluency. Every part of that has effort. Frustration level sounds like someone who's struggling to read. That's gone. Instructional level might sound like this. I went to the store. Instructional level is a place where students are reading, but they still need a little bit of support at different places. It might be about word recognition, sight words you know by sight, and words that need decoding. So story, someone knows OR, someone knows ST, maybe it's a long O, store. And so that's a teaching level. That's the level that we typically provide books for students when they come to a reading group, because we're working in those books at that level. Independent level, the child doesn't need anybody around them. They just read fluently. I went to the store. So when you look at that level book, A, then check B, then check C, depending on what you hear as you listen to them, then you can make a guidepost about where that student is, and then that would be the level that they should continue, instructional level, to continue to read with you. And then independent level is where they choose a book and go to the screen and then read by themselves. You can hear them in the background, and you don't need to be part of that to help them through the book. Each of those levels are important recognitions to have about each student reader. And I suggest for most of the folks is to start with A, just so that you're starting at a level that likely most people are at or have passed. So the entrance up to it is going to be, okay, I know this is familiar to me, as opposed to starting above too far. In an assessment situation, we would not do that. We try to find the level below where we believe a student to be, so they can walk up, feel okay about reading, as opposed to, and raising anxiety, raising distress. And then that level that you take a guess at is instructional. Again, check with me if you want to. Be the place I would suggest that you continue having a student read over the course of the summer. As I've told students in a couple of videos already, is that every day school closed, but learning didn't close. Whether we're in and out of session, school closed, but not learning. And so every day I told them they should be doing a little bit of reading, a little bit of mathing, and a little bit of writing. And so they've heard that from me feel free to use whatever power I may have in your house when I'm not there, is to have them do some reading. That 20-minute model is great. That includes you reading to them looking at pictures in newspapers or books or magazines and telling you stories about those. I all consider reading skills, but at this point they should be close to text use. So you look at reading, that's a piece. So that mechanical piece, the phonics, the word recognition, so decoding and word recognition. And then application, putting it into use by reading text. Excuse me. So you look at reading, those are the critical pieces. As you look through the comprehensive list of standards, there's things about inference and opinion and reflecting an author's opinion and substantiation of author's premises. Feel free to read those and become familiar with those. We addressed many of those during the course of the year. We missed some of them with being gone. But for example, the science magazines that we did and Ms. Sorensen spent a lot of time with, those were our chance to do kind of group reading skills, which did lots of drill down, looking for words, looking for punctuation, understanding the pictures and how the picture and photo illustrations connect with the text. So continuing with those pieces around English language arts. The other part is the writing, every day, a little bit of reading, writing, and mathing. Students at this point should be able to write and then read their own writing. About 2, if not 3 sentences about something. It could be about, your walk around the block, or your pool day, or going to grandma's house, or it could be, once upon a time there was a dog who traveled into space, and they're doing something creative. We built up lots of that over the course of the year with our weekly writing about the weekend, and then other writing assignments. But they should be doing about that kind of writing with clarity in word choice, being able to write all of the reading words that we learn, and then doing fairly substantial and effective sound spelling. So blanket, B-L-K-T, blanket, that makes sense. The more vowels you add, the slower that you try sound spelling. Adding an A is helpful because it begins to look more like standard print. I suggest that students keep a journal over the summer, so there's an obligation to write something every day in a journal. Have been advocating for students to keep some kind of COVID-19 journal, because that will become a document later in their life to look back upon this year, as it will for anyone who was writing during this period. But that's a good way of sitting down and reviewing the day at the end of the day, before dinner or after dinner, so they have a kind of purposeful writing to take care of. Also encourage kids to write letters over the summer to people who could be your next door neighbor, and they're just sending writing a note, not putting it into the mailbox, knocking and then leaving, or a relative who lives far away, filling out a postcard or a letter that just, again, reviews the day. Today I went to, that helps them keep track of their reading, writing, and mathing. And then the math, we'll talk about next. So I think those are important pieces when you look at all the standards that they're obligated to and that we do work through. Sorry, dry throat. Addressing and supporting those will carry your student well through the summer. If we take a look at math, the math similarly is a very complex and full year worth of standards. But as we did some research in the K-team and looked at how do we balance our emphasis at different times during the year, there's measurement and data, there's geometry, there's patterns. We did research and found out that counting and cardinality, so counting fluently and recognizing numerals, is 40% of the kindergarten's math year. And we start out at the beginning of the year with numbers less than 10. And then it was numbers up to 20. The teen numbers, 17 is 10 and 7 more. That period we did in late fall. And then the 100s, up to 100 that we did in around February. That's all counting and cardinality, is 40% of the year. And then the others are chunks of that. So geometry is 15 and measurement is 10. So if a student is familiar with measurement and patterns and geometry, that's great. but emphasis around being fluid and fluent with the number. This is 5, and the numeral, that's 5. I make a distinction in class between the two, although most people move back and forth and use the terms number for both of them. But our class knows that that's the numeral 5. This is 5, the number 5. Feel free to adopt that as you can. So, as I say, it could be something simple for the reading, writing, mathing is to write the numerals in the 70s. And they simply write 70 up to 79. Another day they could write from 35 to 49, just so they're seeing that. Having a 100s chart would be useful. Try to send that. Having a 100s chart would be useful because they see the patterns of the 10 system. So 62, and if you leap one row ahead to 72, that's a difference of 10. And you can count the boxes and see that that's 10. Having students take a look at the difference in place value, 62 and 26, and showing them what's the difference between those two. They both have 6s and they both have 2s. And then having them explain that to you. As I try to impress upon parents and in the math study in computation, is that students can say things like 4 plus 4 equals 8, and 110 plus 5 more is 150. But if we were to pull that memorized fact away and ask them to write it down or to show you with tallies, I wouldn't go to 101, but showing you with tallies or counters or stacks of 10 or pennies, can they make that practical application? And I can see the difference in class when students can recite all kinds of math facts, but when asked to provide a model of it in front of me, it's all here. Well, that, in my opinion, works for only a few people, few kids at this point to really have this, but have the deep understanding. Again, it can't be memorized, but can you show me 26 in 2 or 3 different interpretations? And if I take away 5, what will, all those kind of pieces. So a recognition of computation and the idea of numeration are important. So when you look at counting and cardinality, there's that piece around the, so I just have my list in the back. Those numbers up to 10, then up to 20. We did some up to 30, and then the big leap is up to 100. And so truly understanding how our number system works is a place. And if you look at the standards, computation, addition, subtraction for kindergarten, subtraction is just less than 5. Addition is just less than 10. So if the students can understand and demonstrate that knowledge to us, they're at standard for computation. I chose to be the math teacher for K because I knew computation was a heavy topic. It's a big sign-off for the year. I decided to capitalize upon experience, and I specifically knew that I wanted from my class, and then everyone else, I still trust my colleagues, I was going to teach 3 levels. At lessons, at standard lessons, above content for above standard lesson content, and people who needed support in computation. I wanted those. We did, I think, 4 or 5 weeks. Only the last week we stopped doing the support level. I really wanted that to be very, very strongly presented. And so I volunteered for that task. Everyone else was very happy I did, but I did that on purpose. By the time it got to the end, all the lessons were addition up to 20. So we were already past standard. So I don't have any qualms about students moving forward with that. Although I still say, it was video lessons, is that you take some time and ask them to explain to you back about that. And then hear it, challenge them a little bit, see if they can identify your errors in presentation or explanation to really show that. Missing add-ins, which was the last major topic in computation. Every year is a big kind of clunk for people. I can have students who can be moving quickly through computation and memorize facts, and when I bring up missing add-ins, we're all back in the same boat of trying to figure out what does that mean. We get there, but the teachers had a meeting about that before we started that cooperative teaching, that is a place to be watchful for. So that's something important too. So 5 plus equals 8. 11 plus equals 17. And then using number line counters to come across with that. So those are the places I'd say for math. If you look at counting and cardinality and computation. I have my list behind me, so I'm just checking back there. Okay, yeah. That's around the academic piece. The fall. You know, hey, there's a great... Oh, I think it's in the other room. Nope. I did a presentation to the University of Washington students the other day. This is one of my favorite headlines from the New York Times from a couple of weeks ago. Right? No. Everything is prediction. Some of it informative, some of it not informative. Who knows about the fall? Yeah, that's all we can say. In light of that, kind of referencing to that, and then around that, there's several points here to take note of. I did my best with long distance learning. When I sensed that it was coming, and it was coming very quickly, I did take the lead for myself and my team. I prepared all of the Schoology packets, what was it, about 14 days worth. We were only told to prepare 10. Those 14 days of packets. If you have not been using those are at this point, those would be great review skill tasks to spread out over the summer to do those. And when students complain about, oh, we did this already, I tell them, yeah, but you put on shoes and socks today? You did that yesterday too. So we do repeat things in our lives. And so feel free to go back to any of those, as well as during the course of the summer, is to think about revisiting any of the single videos on any of the playlist days. Review can't hurt anybody. Yeah, okay. And so I did the Schoology stuff first, so that was up and ready as soon as we were told to prepare a Schoology list, and you have 2 hours to do that. K-Team was already done. So, and then when it came to the online learning, I knew the district would be distracted with a number of other tasks, homelessness, students who are homeless, looking for nutrition, tech access and stuff. So I jumped right into the YouTube videos that first week, and I look back, I was doing some research this weekend, and first I had 1 video. I think by the end we had sometimes like 17 videos per day. But I have no qualms about delivering so much because I think it served our kids well. A piece that I do recognize having missed from among many for these final weeks is that usually about 4 or 5 weeks out, I start to help students let go by bringing up something each day. We do memory books. The memory book that was in the bag from last week is something we would do each day and really reflect back on the topic, and then do the writing, and then do write a circle and share it out, so people felt really part of a process in remembering and then writing, and then that memory book becomes hopefully a treasure in lives. But that sprinkling out of understanding the let go of this experience is something to reckon with. And so I encourage you to continue to have conversations with your students, clearly, obviously, as you are talented people and know about what they remember, what they'll hold here, what they'll hold here, what they may have in hand, to help them see their success and how we completed with success, are taking a break, and then move forward. And it's interesting because when we are in person, I can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, but each student has their moment when you just suddenly see the head tilt and the eyes get big, and it just occurred to them, we're stopping. This experience will only remain here at a certain point. It's not going to be a physical experience. And you just see that recognition in their part that I'm not moving forward with them. This group will distribute and then reconfigure in a different way next year. Some people move away. You can just see in their eyes that that's the case. And so I did not have that opportunity with the students this year. One of the stories that I tell that really confirmed that experience for students with me was, I'm going to get something to drink. Apologies, didn't have my seltzer at hand. A number of years ago when I taught at a different school, had the son of a teacher in the building who was became a very close friend. I did all my usual stuff about the gradual release and all the pieces that for me felt very clear to students, and everyone was, you get it, they all have that moment when they hear me and that our relationship is going to change and no longer be present every day. The hugs increase, the love notes increase, and this friend's son was all fine. He was all fine. All day, a big goodbye, and then got to the bus, and he was literally on the first step, and he suddenly just went, wait, he's not going to be my teacher next year? And then blocked and refused to get on the bus. That was his moment of reckoning that I was gone. I was going to be gone and just become a memory to him. Although we'd be in the same building, but that daily experience, they had to call his mom out to help her, to have her help him get off the bus and come to terms with what he had just realized. And so it's really one of my favorite and tender stories. He graduated college just 2 years ago. We're still in contact, Facebook friends, and but it confirmed for me that even with all the practice and the prep, that some students, that moment of reckoning happens in different ways and different times for them. So recognizing that, and I do regret that was a missing piece that could not be completely sustained by the distance. So just being aware of that piece in there. Some are glad to see me go, and they're just fine with it, and that's all okay. But just knowing that that's a piece in there. Check my list in the background there. The next is, okay, to clarify how, so many things there. To clarify how the grades are reconfigured. I thought I explained it before, but I might not have. How the grades are built in our building and every building I've been in so far. We start the process is I divide my class into 5 groups for each of the first grades. Every teacher does that for the number of classrooms in the subsequent grade. And I divide my students equally in all kinds of parameters. I, of course, do drill down by age, academic performance, gender, and then I make my 5 piles. Alex Jones comes over. He has done the same due diligence, and we're all very thoughtful and detail-oriented people. And he lays his 5 groups on top of mine. Carlene Confer, Maggie Schellenberger, Jimmy Barnes, all stack them. So we have these piles. It's a little bit like Hawks United. Like when I do Hawks United, I divide the groups very carefully to 5. We stack them up, and there goes Red Shoulder, Gray Hawks, Black Hawks. When we're finished, we then take that stack and look at the names, and then check back. And then we look for things like, are there 2 people with the same name? Or, ooh, this person often had recess struggles. And then we'll do a shift and move people around. I think a genuine gift that I brought to the grade level and the building is the fact that I have promoted so much about in-grade collaboration and cross-class mixing that when I look at that stack, I know all those kids. It isn't a matter of, now which one is that name? Because of Hawks, Crafternoon, My World and I know my nation. And then the recess lunch periods where kids talk to us because they see us in all of those iterations. It's a very cohesive kindergarten group.